Hey, everybody. First, I want to thank everyone. It has been a momentous week in Zenny 62 media history, which I will not go through. It's been fantastic. So I want to thank everyone for their support. And I want to, in particular, thank Oakland's President Dave Caval for coming on and having an epic conversation about Howard Terminal. And I'm proud to welcome my friend, District 1 Councilmember Dan Kalb. Dan, without any further ado, how are you?
I'm okay. Hold on just one second. I apologize. I just got it. I'm doing great. Never been busier. We have so much going on with the city, affordable housing, responses that we need to engage in because of the COVID epidemic, and many more things that I could talk about right now. But there is so much going on. I'm spending a lot of time. My staff is spending a lot of time. We're working hard, and we have a lot to do and a lot more to do. So we're trying to get it done.
And how is it running a campaign? Because now you're experienced at this, but it's a pandemic. What's the difference in how are you managing from your perspective?
Well, what you're bringing up is that in addition to my work as a full-time city council member and the work that my staff and I are doing, I have to also run for re-election. Of course, that's normal every 4 years. And that also takes a lot of time. So over the past several months, from February until just a week or two ago, it was challenging to find time to pull time away from my work to be doing some campaigning and whatnot. I did some, but not enough. And so I'm working hard to try to catch up and do the campaigning we need to do. Directly to your question, nobody is really knocking on doors like we normally would do. In fact, back in February, I was knocking on doors and answering questions and talking with constituents and doing what is normal door-to-door campaigning, something I love doing. That stopped once the COVID epidemic hit. That stopped dead in its tracks, as you would expect. So we're not doing any of that. Now we are making phone calls. I mean, you could phone bank as much as you want, epidemic or not. And I've been doing that, focusing mostly on seniors in terms of our phone calling, because really the main purpose of the phone calls I'm making, and even my staff have been making some, is to see how our homebound seniors are doing during the epidemic, especially seniors who we believe live alone. So if you're over 65 and you live alone, we want to know that you're doing okay. And so we've been calling many of our seniors who we believe live alone and just checking in with them. But we have a lot more to call. I mean, we haven't gotten through the whole list yet.
I bet you they appreciate that too.
Yeah. I mean, often we're just leaving messages, but I would hope they appreciate it. We talk to some people, and most people are doing fine. They don't need any assistance, but we want to make sure about that.
Overall, how's the city of Oakland doing through all this? And I ask because we've had, I believe, 5 shootings in 5 days over a recent stretch. And yet, on the other hand, there's a lot of people who've been helping each other. There's a lot of effort toward making life better in the middle of what is the most challenging time in our lives. I think it's fair to say, if for those of us who didn't live through the Depression, right?
Yeah, you're right. And on again, off again for a number of weeks and months, we've had a number of shootings, that some of which have become murders, of course. And no murder is okay. One more than none is unacceptable. Even though we know we're not going to end all murders tomorrow, our goal is to drive that number down, not up. And over the past number of years, past 4 or 5 years, it has gone down. Maybe it's a slight increase this year compared to last couple of years, but we're nowhere near the high numbers that we were several years ago, back in the mid 2000s or even early teens. So, but nevertheless, we're not giving up. It's important that we fund our Department of Violence Prevention and the strategies that they are coming up with, and they need to have the resources necessary to put those strategies into place to help reduce violence overall. And it's a multifaceted, multi-pronged approach, and they're still figuring out more to add to that. But if we're not successful in reducing violence, then what are we here for? And so that is a top priority with me and with all of us. And I've been focusing on getting more funding for our violence prevention strategies and our new Department of Violence Prevention, and trying to make sure they have the resources they need to do the job that all of us in the city want them to do.
Are you satisfied with how the city is responding in the middle of the pandemic, and where are the weak points that you would like to shore up?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. There are many elements to that. There's first and foremost the health impacts and the need to curtail the spread of the virus. And of course, as you know, the cities, like Oakland and almost every city, we take our lead from the county. Our Alameda County has the health officials, public health department, the county health officer. They make the decisions based on state guidelines or state requirements, plus the county data and the county rules or county orders saying, okay, this is what we're allowed to do. This is where we can open up. This is where we can't open up. And here's why. And here are the numbers. And here's what we need to do to stem the spread and keep people as safe as possible. I feel it's very important that we follow those guidelines. Those requirements very strictly. I know there's a desire, a totally understandable desire for businesses and people in the public to open up, to be able to get back to some semblance of semi-normal over time. And I totally get that. And one of the main reasons, of course, is the economic impacts that this artificially created recession is having very real economic impacts on businesses, on small businesses, and the employees who work or used to work there. And when you have a financial impact that could be devastating for some, there's this natural desire. I got to get back to work. I got to have a job. I got to work hours. I got to open my doors. I can't live like this. I can't have ends meet. I got bills to pay. I got mortgages. I have kids to feed and so on. And so there's a desire to say, let me open up. Let me open up. I'll be safe. I'll be safe. And I totally get that. I mean, the economic impacts are absolutely real and serious. And what we have to do, for better or worse, is to be very careful about opening up, because I like to say, the more we keep our distance, the sooner we can get back together. And if we open up too soon, we're going to drag this out for a long, long time. And that's not going to help anybody. If we want to get a handle on this and defeat this as soon as possible, we have to be pretty strict in keeping ourselves away from each other as much as possible, and be strict in terms of wearing masks, staying home unless you have to go out, essential workers versus non-essential workers. We have to do that. And it's heart-wrenching to see the economic impacts of many people. Because we have to do that, we still have to do that. And there isn't really much of an alternative there. I think the county and other counties are being cautious and careful to reduce the spread. And we in the city are following their lead because we have to, and we are, of course. But there are things that we can do and that I've taken some lead on in some areas to help our small businesses, or in some cases, help the employees. For example, I worked with one of my colleagues, Councilmember Tao, in creating the expanded sick leave law. So we have an expanded sick leave law for medium and large businesses in Oakland. So people who had worked there right before COVID started were eligible for more sick leave than they might otherwise have gotten. I also convinced the Economic Development Department and the city administration to use what turns out to be over $100,000, maybe even $150,000 in the CARE funds, in the federal funds, for mediation. Mediation for small business, retail businesses and nonprofits to mediate with their commercial property landlord in trying to get a temporary reduction in rent, or if not that, a long-term repayment plan of rent. Because it does nobody any good if some retail business shuts their doors and closes. No one's getting any rent if that happens, right? Getting a little bit less rent is better than no rent at all. And so it's in everybody's best interest to keep those businesses in place and those nonprofits in their offices in order to be able to survive and thrive afterwards. And if our commercial property landlords
Absolutely.
need to lower their rent temporarily to do that, that's in their best interest too. And we have a mediation service that the city is helping to pay for to help people do that. So I feel I'm glad that we're doing that. I'm happy to be the one to push that through. I also, as many cities has done, I also authored an emergency ordinance to put a cap on food delivery fees that those apps, those third-party vendors have been charging. They were charging at 30%, and like, you know, when you had those outside delivery being a small portion of the overall business of a restaurant, then okay, whatever, they charge what they charge. But now it's a large percentage of a small amount, and the restaurant owners can't afford it. And so we put a cap on that, and I put that through, and so I'm very proud of that as well. So we're trying to help our small businesses the best way we can. The city, as you know, has opened up the outdoor dining and the parklets along various avenues, and we're helping people do that, and that's a good thing. So, you know, there's more to do, and we can't do everything everybody wants us to do, but we got to help people the best we can. And I think the city is trying to do the best it can. It could always do more, but we're trying to help people the best we can, and making sure they have the information from the state or the feds on what kind of resources there are in terms of short-term loans or grants or other or for employees, other job referral services too.
Hey, since we're in the middle of Democratic National Convention as well, this is obviously something that's not happening in a vacuum, as you pointed out. But first of all, what could the current administration have done better?
The current administration in the White House in terms of COVID response?
Yes, sir.
Well, they could have recognized the problem more quickly, but that's, you know, what are you going to do? And once the problem was identified, they should not have been in denial about it or played it down. They should have realized what a public health emergency this actually was, and they should have gone, you know, full force into considering it a true public health emergency and taking the appropriate action or assisting states in taking the appropriate action right away. Instead, we had mixed messages from the commander-in-chief, and that's led some people to feel less urgent about what they do. And so you have people in some states and some communities who are not wearing masks, who are in denial. What's that? Yeah.
Georgia.
Yeah, there you go. Not wearing masks, in denial about the seriousness of the challenge. I mean, we've seen people who have gone to events or crowded situations or indoor or whatever, even outdoor places where it's crowded, a lot of people not wearing masks, and they feel happy-go-lucky or carefree, and all of a sudden some of them contract the virus, and a percentage of those die. It's like, my gosh, I mean, what more do you need to know here? People need to be smart about this, and it takes leaders to set examples. And our commander-in-chief of the country needs to be the one who sets the example the best. And this current person in the White House is failing repeatedly to do that, and that is unconscionable. I mean, that itself should be an impeachable offense. But you know, we have an election coming up, so they could have done more, getting resources, distributing masks, helping states, supporting the efforts of states to do more, urging them to do more. It would have given some of the governors more cover, which apparently they needed. They shouldn't need it, but they did. So, you know, what can we say? We are where we are now. We can't go back in time, and we have to take it seriously and let the public health experts guide our decision making.
Hey, speaking of seniors and mobility and public service, what are your thoughts about the new bus rapid transit system that was launched weeks ago? Actually, a week ago. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I'm a supporter of BRT, and I had hoped originally that the BRT line, AC Transit, would have gone from the San Leandro area border up through International, downtown, along Telegraph, and into Berkeley. And that would have made sense. And it would have been, in fact, there are people in Berkeley who regret making the decision they made, 10 years ago. Today, they would have made a different decision, I think. I've always supported it. I think it helps invigorate commercial retail corridors it lies on, and it's an efficient way to get from point A to point B. It helps get more people out of their cars. It helps provide a quicker way for people who take the bus regularly to get to where they need to get to more quickly, more quickly, and that's a good thing. But once Berkeley turned it down, it didn't make any sense to go into North Oakland and stop in the middle of nowhere. So they decided to stop downtown or near the 21st Street area, near the BART station. They could have gone up to MacArthur BART station if they wanted to and stopped there. But they did what they did. I support it. We are now looking at an option of having what is in effect a BRT kind of plan along San Pablo, the San Pablo corridor. It would start downtown, kind of connect off Broadway, jog over to San Pablo, and then go up San Pablo up through Oakland, Emeryville, North Oakland, and then maybe into Berkeley and beyond. And that plan is in the early stages. I believe it will happen, and I support it.
And what are your thoughts also about just getting back? We talked about normal. I think we talked about normal a lot, but from the perspective of having a place where we see a vaccine and everyone is healthier, it would seem that we're also going to be in a situation where a number of businesses have closed permanently, and that the fabric of life that we've so enjoyed over our years in Oakland and North Oakland and Telegraph and Temescal is changed. Has anyone talked about a plan to really do as much as possible to sort of restore the roar? I hate to use that Cal term, but it just seems appropriate.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, you're right. We're facing. We don't even yet know what challenges we're going to be facing when we come out of this pandemic. However many number of months this may be, even longer than that. We don't know yet, and we don't know how long the recession will last. The fact that we have this pandemic, which is shutting us down or partially shutting us down, is the cause of the recession, and will also be the cause of how long the recession may last. And so it's very serious. You're right. Some businesses are shutting down. That's why I really push forward this plan to help negotiate temporary reductions in rent. Listen, I will tell you, there are some commercial landlords who are great and are kind, and they're still business people, of course, but they are working with their commercial. When I say commercial, I'm talking about small business retail tenants and some nonprofits, and they're working with many of them to help them, survive. Mm-hmm. And that's great, and we owe them our heartfelt thanks. And at the same time, there are other commercial property landlords who also have retail tenants who are sticks in the mud and are like, really? Aren't you being part of the community? Come on. And I have no sympathy for them. They need to step up like others are voluntarily doing, and they need to step up and work with their tenants, commercial tenants, in renegotiating temporary decreases in rent and long-term repayment plans, to be part of the community. And unfortunately, under state law, because it's commercial property, we at local level cannot by law require them to do that, as much as I would love to. We can protect them from evictions, which we're doing, and I'm a co-author of the eviction moratorium. I'm proud of that effort. We're doing that, but we can't stop them from charging the rent they want to charge. And when a lease is up and the pandemic is by the wayside, they can evict people right and left, and that's sad. So we need them to step up and help their commercial tenants, the retail tenants, and nonprofits, and we're trying to get them to do that. But you're right, some businesses are going to close no matter what. Some have already closed. We have to do what we can over time to help those storefronts find new tenants. To do that in the middle of a pandemic is very difficult. Very, very difficult, and I don't expect that to happen in any big way. I think you'll see, we already are seeing some storefronts, shut. We're not seeing, at least not in my district, we're not seeing a huge number, but we might see that could still happen. And so we're trying to help them the best we can. and it's challenging. It is really challenging. One thing that I've been working on doing, and it's now on hold, but we're going to bring this back, is to pass an ordinance, a planning ordinance in Oakland that essentially in certain retail business corridors prohibit what is in effect prohibit new chain stores from renting out any of the vacant properties, the retail properties. Now that's on a case-by-case basis. There are some parts of town where you don't want to prohibit that because they need whatever they can get, right? They need to fill that. You need jobs. You need retail activity, and you'll take whatever you can get in certain parts of town, and you want to encourage that. So that's fine. It's not a one-size-fits-all. But in some corridors where you have a lot of activity and a desire among the retail merchants and the people who are most active there, there's a lot of desire to have things. We don't want chain stores. We want local independent businesses here, and we generally have that. And so when we open back up and we try to fill those vacancies, I don't want a bunch of chain stores coming in to some of those streets, some of those avenues in my district, and neither do the people who are already there. And so we're going to be working on that, and probably won't happen until next year, but we are going to do that. And I think that's a good thing. I think you want the tax revenue and you want the income to stay local the best you can. And by having local independent businesses, or maybe a business that has only 2 or 3 stores in the East Bay, you want them to be on our corridors, not those chains.
I want to pull in my friend Jackie Simpkins, who owns the alley, has had a problem with the water because this is actually caused by the pandemic, but Maine broke, and next thing you know, she's got a water bill that's out the door. And so it's businesses like hers. I was wondering how many businesses around Oakland have had, pandemic specific problems that perhaps could lead to new legislation that starts in the city and the state level, right? Help them out. It's just what you were seeing, just basically the breakage of our economic engine, the things that tie together that make up our economy in a way that I get the impression the federal government isn't used to or doesn't want to do because of philosophy, and yet we don't get a chance to do because we're kind of held up, from getting some money from them. I'm not going on a soapbox, but sort of setting up a question.
Yeah.
As much of this, we kind of depend on you to have the answer per se, which, in thinking about it, I don't think is quite fair. How do we all have all hands on deck so we can put everything together as a group of people and say, hey, try this, suggest this, lobby for this, do that? I just feel like we need a different kind of politics than we've had to fix this problem,
Yeah, I think I can't speak for other cities, but Oakland and I believe many other cities are doing that. You don't always see that. A lot of the work, as you know, Zinni, a lot of the work that goes on in any local government doesn't always happen on a screen or in a public meeting, although some of the work does. A lot of it is just the staff doing the day-to-day work they do, the management working at our emergency operations center and having meetings well beyond normal work hours and trying to get things done. The mayor making phone calls to raise some money. I meeting with my staff and responding to people on a one-on-one basis. I mean, a lot of the stuff is not public in terms of the broad public knowing it, but it's still going on. And it has to go on. And if there's more we can do that we're not already doing, by all means we should. And nobody has all the answers. But we have like I said, my staff and I have been working harder than we ever have in the past, whether it's relating to homelessness encampments or our small businesses and nonprofits, or passing out. I passed out hundreds of masks. Boy, with the fires now, I got to pass out more masks of higher end masks now. I mean, I know you're right, not in town right now, but I mean, we're having some of the worst fires we've ever had in the Greater Bay Area. And it's national news, I know, and it's serious. I mean, I was outside at a meeting recently, and it's bad. It's bad for our homeless population that's outdoors. It's really bad for them. And I've been talking with somebody who's trying to get us to to purchase some more masks, which I'm happy to do, of course. And so we have to help people the best we can. It's warm weather. There's been some rolling blackouts and brownouts with the electricity grid, and we have a lot of work to do to, both in the short term, make sure people are safe and healthy, and then long term, do our best to kind of rebuild our economy. And it's not easy, but there's work underway. I know the governor is working on that, as he should, and he is, and he's working hard. And we all got to come together and do the best we can. But we have to also. It's very easy for me or for celebrities who you see on TV all the time saying good things, or saying on YouTube or on their commercials. Yes, we all got to stick together. But these celebrities are very well off financially, and while they was absolutely sincere, and I believe them and I thank them, they're not facing the hardship that many of our residents and business owners and employees are facing. And so I have to just keep on saying that, yes, while we have to be careful and shelter in place and not open up too quickly and do what we can to stem the tide, and like I said before, the more we keep our distance, the sooner we'll be able to get back together. And we have to do that. And the result of that is what we've seen already, is that businesses are shut or severely reduced hours, employees are out of work, and the enhanced unemployment benefits has been set aside by Congress because they couldn't get their freaking act together. I appreciate Nancy Pelosi in her efforts to work and keep fighting the good fight, but it takes two houses in D.C. to solve a problem, and you have the House of Representatives led by Nancy Pelosi that is working hard to solve those problems, and you have the Senate led by Mitch McConnell that is like ridiculous. I can't say to you the things I want to say to you about Mitch McConnell. That would be irresponsible to do that in a public setting like this using those kind of cuss words. So hopefully we can get rid of him as well as the guy in the White House. But yeah, so we got a lot of work to do, and we are working hard. What's that?
I said Amy McGrath.
Yes, there you go. Yeah, and there are a lot of other states. I mean, just to be a little political right now, since the Democrat National Convention is underway this week, there are several states around the country: Arizona, Colorado, Iowa, Maine, Kentucky, and maybe one or two others, where we can take that seat back into sane hands, and that's what we got to try to do. So while I'm running for re-election here in Oakland, and I'm working hard to do that, and I'm going to focus on that, of course, that we still all have to work to change the leadership in the White House and change the count in the Senate by winning more states, and that's absolutely critical. And everybody who's a good liberal, progressive, a Democrat or independent should be working hard to do that.
Oh, hey, real quick, homelessness. Any new initiatives that people should know about in terms of helping the homeless and the problem with?
Yes, I'm very excited about a couple of things. I'm very excited about one thing. You may know that the California College of the Arts, right here in my district, is closing their Oakland campus, unfortunately. They made an economic decision a year ago, 2 years ago, and they're going to consolidate in San Francisco. So that's going to happen. So in addition to their main campus, there's a whole discussion going on about how many housing units should we build there and so on and so forth. There is a dormitory that they've had for over 15 years called Clifton Hall. It has 63 units in it. And I've been pushing the college, it's private property. I've been pushing them saying, listen, I want that building to be below market housing of one sort or another. I don't, whoever you sell it to. And I gave them a lengthy list of nonprofit housing developers and nonprofit housing managers, community land trusts, and they reached out to all those groups. And I also made sure that the City of Oakland Housing Department, Housing Office, knew about this, and they do, and they put in a bid. The City of Oakland, using our care funds, put in a bid, and through a little pressure, a little friendly pressure from me and our mayor, we got them to accept our bid. And so I'm happy to report that building, which has 63 units, the first floor of that building is going to be transitional housing for homeless families. And a family is usually 3 people, a single parent and 2 kids, or a couple and 1 child. And so that floor will probably house 50 to 60 people. Transitional, so usually at 6 months at a time, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, and with services, with wraparound services, full services. And that's the first floor. The second and third floor are going to be permanent, affordable housing for extremely low-income people. And it's mostly going to be seniors, age 60 and over, who are or have chronically been homeless in Oakland.
Wow.
And some of those seniors will be couples. So between those 2 floors will probably be about 55 people or so. So we're going to have over 100 people in this building off the streets into housing. And I'm proud of that. I pushed hard for that. The city did a great job in pushing for that. We have more details to fine tune. We're going to have a public meeting about that next week on Zoom, and so very excited about that. We also have 2 projects on West MacArthur and MLK. One is under construction, almost done. One is approved but not yet under construction. 100% affordable housing, both projects. Between the 2 of them, about 120 units. And between the 2 of them, over half those units will be for extremely low income, with homeless residents getting first dibs. And in one of those buildings, there'll be wraparound services with that and on-site management. And so, again, that's 120 there, or probably close to about 150, 200 people there, 100 over here. And so that's, we have thousands, so we know that's not enough. But every time we could take more people off the street, that's a success story. And if we could take 100 people off the street, that's a good success story. And I'm proud of the work that we're doing to make that happen. I've been pushing that very hard. There's more to do. There's a motel I want the city to purchase, or the county to purchase in District 1, other parts of town as well. So we're working hard to help doing that. In the meantime, though, we know we have encampments. We have encampments of 8, 10, 12, 15, sometimes even 20 tents at various locations with a few RVs and cars. Some of those locations, you would say, oh my God, that's living in squalor. How could we even be okay with that for a minute? Other encampments are better run by the people who live there, and we get more attention, more services. But I've been pushing, and I got some more money in the budget amendments recently to do trash collection more often, to do porta potty servicing at the encampments more frequently, and to do a deep cleaning on a more regular basis as is truly needed at these encampments, so they could look nice, be more healthy, not be the squalor, be not all this crap around, and be at least an okay, not a great, it's never okay, but be a place to stay temporarily in your tent and what have you, that is at least not unhealthy, unsafe, or bothersome to the people next door who live in houses. So it's good for everybody to do that, but we need so much more resources to be successful there. And so that's a challenge. We're doing more, and there's more to do. There'll be a committee meeting of the council on September 25th to talk about that.
Councilmember, I want to thank you very much. By the way, Zenny 62 Media, for the 3rd time in my life, is credentialed to cover the Democratic National Convention, this time virtual. So I'm going to switch over.
Can I say one more thing, Zenny?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I want to also announce that I'm very proud of the work that our city staff have done, by the community advocates and environmental justice people who have been working on this for over a year. And I was the lead person on the council to help shepherd this through, and I engaged in this. I created a community advisory committee. The city of Oakland has adopted unanimously an equitable climate action plan, a new climate action plan for the city of Oakland that is a model for the country, a model for any city in the country. It's a strong plan. The one part of the plan that I think could be stronger is the Port of Oakland, but every other part of the plan is great, is something to be proud of, and it will be implemented through an equity lens. Not just saying so, but we actually adopted language in the plan to actually do that. And over the next several years, we're going to focus on that in a big time, and that's going to be a top priority for me for the years ahead. So very proud of that new climate action plan.
And you'll come back and talk about it more.
Okay.
All right. Hey, Dan, don't go anywhere. Stay backstage. Everybody, see you in a few minutes. We're going to do a rush job, but we'll be back on Zenny62 on YouTube, and shame on you haven't subscribed. But we'll see. And bookmark Oakland News now, and thank you all very much for your incredible support.